Welcome to the Seismic Sisters Show. Today we're excited to interview Michele Pred, who's a feminist artist and activist. She blends her roles in the fine art world, showing in museums and galleries, with on-the-ground activism. So we're very excited to be in her studio here, which is kind of a fantasy land, and she's going to walk us through some of her pieces. And I'd like to welcome you, Michele Pred.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Would you just give us in a nutshell what you do as a conceptual artist?
So, like you mentioned, I'm an artist and an activist and a mom. Juggling all those three is sometimes challenging because I travel a lot for my artwork. So it's taking ideas and putting them together with my creative process and thinking conceptually about different objects. I often work with found objects, meaning purses or actual packs of birth control pills. So I put them together and think about what their meaning is. When I put a lot of them together conceptually, there's always a number of layers of meaning in those objects. So that's where the conceptual part comes in.
We just discovered you through your Instagram. You seem to be very popular and adept at social media. You're also going viral lately with your purses, the Power of the Purse series. And you deal with different issues from equal pay to abortion rights. We've even seen celebrities showing up on the red carpets or glamorous events with your purses, making a statement with style. Some that I've noticed are Amy Schumer and Ariana DeBose. Can you tell us what's it like to be going viral and having your big moment?
Actually, the first time it went viral was when Marc Jacobs was doing a shoot. My show happened to be up. And it was right during International Women's Day. This was in 2014, I believe, 15. And I had a wall installed, so 20 purses in a grid. And he posted them on Marc Jacobs' website, and it went crazy. I mean, the amount of followers all of a sudden I had, like thousands of people increasing, or views, or likes, or so that was, I couldn't understand why there was all of a sudden so much activity until I realized I'd been tagged, but it was so many likes that I couldn't find it initially, what was going on. And that, I live in Berkeley, California, and that piece now is in the Berkeley Art Museum. So that's fun to have that locally. And the purses all either said pro or choice on them. So that was the first of the group of pieces that I did with the Power of the Purse. So I was initially only going to make 50 of them, and that was going to be the end of the series. Little did I know that there'd be a lot of fodder as soon as Trump became president, and it really took off from there. There were so many issues to respond to in the moment, and that's what I really like about the purses. I can respond very quickly. I can make a purse. I mean, for example, this week I'm going to be making a peace purse. I'm making a war is not the answer purse. So it's being able to respond in real time to what's happening internationally or regionally, or in the case of Trump, I mean, there was so many, nevertheless she persisted, pussy grabs back. I mean, there were so many things to respond to in the moment with him that I couldn't stop. And yeah, it's activism that you can carry around. I consider them small scale billboards that light up and flash. A lot of people do carry them. I mean, they've been on the red carpet of the Oscars. Amy Schumer, both times when she's posted, the first time in 2017, and again, just recently, I didn't know that was gonna happen. I wasn't expecting it. So it's always kind of fun and exciting to see that happen. So this is, speaking of current events, keep abortion pills legal.
Since you're talking about the abortion pills, I found it's hard to discuss those in a way that's engaging, because it's the pills, these little white pills, but you have kind of tackled that as a fine artist. You even address the issue on the beach with sand, out in Miami. Can you tell us about that, and even working in seaweed and snow, and to kind of the outlines of these pills, and how do you...
And I'll tell you about the smallest version I've done and the largest version. Okay. The smallest ones I've done is real scale, which is just a few millimeters, 5 millimeters, half an inch. And they're in silver, and they're jewelry. Mm-hmm. So that's sort of the smallest, so you can actually literally wear them. The largest is 56 feet wide, so I have quite a range. And it's really about making a strong message, the kind of footage that we were able to get. Because of course we had a drone, and I wanted to do, something an activation, a performance, on the beach during Miami Art Week where 60,000 people come in from all over the world. I actually already started collaborating with Pussy Riot, but that's sort of the first time we did something together. So that was really exciting. And do something large scale that really sends a strong message. There's a lot of math involved in drawing. We drew them in 2 hours. I had practiced, and it's, like I said, a lot of math and figuring it all out because it's a hexagon and a circle. And we realized the texture of the sand wasn't what we had hoped, or what I'd hoped, and how on the beach where I tested in California, that was very different sand. So we improvised what you have to do as an artist, and we realized there was a lot of seaweed in the water, and so it took us a little more time. But then our group that I created a group of us that were all participating. So that's another really important process of my work is these projects are about all of us participating and really believe in sisterhood and how powerful it is. Not to say that I exclude men; they're always welcome to participate in all the projects, but we all come together, and it's the strength of coming together and community that's really essential. Community and joy. Those are two essential elements to my public projects.
Michele, will you tell me about your Parade Against Patriarchy, which is actually parades, multiple?
Right. So I started those in 2016. Actually, the initial parade was on Roe v. Wade anniversary in 2016. And then that led into doing the first one, sort of larger scale parade against patriarchy. That was right when the Me Too and Time's Up movement was really exploding, and I wanted to do something public again in Miami. Miami has the largest art gathering in the world that people come to and gather in December. So I wanted to do something public that was a performance that also sent a message. They're all very joy and fun filled, even though we're very serious about the issues. So it was really responding to what was happening politically, which all of them are. All of my parades, I've done 13 so far, as far away as from Stockholm, Sweden, to then my next one's gonna be in DC in a few weeks, Washington, DC, Chicago, Miami, New York 3 times, San Francisco, Oakland. So I've done quite a few at this point. So it's really about getting artists together so we can express ourselves, have the signs, have the clothing, as you can see that I sometimes wear this dress, to really come together and publicly send out these messages.
I also was captivated by some recent social media posts about Ona House on the East Coast in East Hampton. I noticed that you had your birth control pill quilt there. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, so that piece was in my solo show from last year in New York. I show with Nancy Hoffman Gallery in New York City. Been showing there for 19 years now. And she bought that piece out of that show. It's called Sexual Revolution, and it's a vintage quilt from the 60s covered in packages with expired birth control pills in them. They represent how women were able to really start working on a larger scale in that time. Birth control pills became legal in the 60s, hence the 1960s quilt. I also happen to love those colors. And she really, really connected with it. And there's been 3 shows in the Hamptons consequently from that. It's a very supportive environment. I should say it's Lisa Perry, who's amazing and very supportive of women artists. She's built a community there, just a great variety of women artists. Not everyone does feminist work. I do, but it's a real great variety of sculpture to abstract to everything in between. Probably the most exciting moment there for me was one of the events that she had, and I was asking about the guest list, and they told me Hillary Clinton was coming, and I didn't quite believe them, but the security team came and checked everything out. So it was a real joy to be able to meet Hillary. Finally, she owns one of my purses. It was gifted to her in 2016. A person said vote. We all were hoping that she would win that year. And so it was really sort of an encouraging piece that unfortunately did not totally come through. Not enough women voted. But to meet her with my piece, and she really loved the piece, the Sexual Revolution, the piece with the quilt. And so that was really rewarding and exciting for me.
As we all went through the pandemic, everyone was struggling to figure out their purpose. How do they stay, creative, active socially? And so you created the Art of Equal Pay campaign during COVID. Can you tell us a bit about that?
I actually started the project a few months before the shutdown and announced it formally 2 weeks before the shutdown. So I hadn't anticipated for it to be happening during a shutdown, nor did anyone else anticipate any of what we went through. However, luckily, with people pivoting and going into Zooms, we were able to really keep going with it and did quite a few Zooms. They were initially every 2 weeks. I mean, we were all figuring things out as we were going, but I was encouraging women artists to increase their prices by up to 15% is one of the actions that we were doing, but received a lot of great support from Gloria Steinem for a lot of people. And you can still go check out the website and people can still support by adding their name to the list. It's not just artists that put their names on the website, it's collectors, it's galleries, it's art supporters, art lovers. So it's really takes a community. If artists are going to raise their prices, that means collectors have to be willing to pay a little bit more. Galleries have to be willing to increase the prices. So it's a whole larger picture, and it's now turned into more about pay equity for all. And because of the issues right now with abortion and post, Dobbs, since last year, I've been focused more about abortion rights, even though equal pay is equally as important.
You're a Swedish American, Swedish and American. Can you tell us what is it like to be a modern woman and a feminist of Swedish heritage? And we also noticed that you did some artistic collaborations at IKEA stores in Emeryville
Yes.
and Miami.
Yeah.
Tell us about that.
You did your research.
Yeah.
Well, so growing up between Sweden and the United States definitely had a big effect on me, and witnessing the politics and the approaches towards equality or lack thereof between the two countries was really insightful and helpful and gave me a lot of perspective. So both my parents were feminists. My father probably more so than my mom, but in different ways. And so I was really brought up with that perspective. It was really important, but obviously there's a lot more equality in Sweden. It's not perfect there either, but far better than here. So really seeing two different worlds and views and ways, that women can experience equality was really informative to me and helpful in, moving forward, and obviously really, really inspired me as an artist. To think about how the world can be or should be by experiencing both sides.
You had mentioned, I think one of your interviews, that your father was a very, very strong influence in your becoming an artist and also the type of artist that you do that's very engaged in social issues.
So he was a professor at UC Berkeley for over 40 years. So, I lived large part of my life in Berkeley. And every 4 years we'd go to Sweden to live for a year, and we lived there every summer. So I spent a lot of time, and still do. I still live in Sweden part-time, 2 months out of the year. So very political, and we always had political discussions at the dinner table. There was awareness around me that started very young. I'm going to age myself here and just say that the Vietnam War was happening when I was very little, freedom of speech. So all these issues were taking place at UC Berkeley, the protests and the movements. And I was, even though I was very young, I think I was 4, my mom tells a story about us being caught in the crossfire of tear gas. It still is in my history, my collective, my consciousness. So I was very aware of these issues, and like I said, they were discussed a lot at home. So I grew up being incredibly aware. And maybe one of the most inspiring and important lessons that my father taught me was in the 7th grade. I came home and said, in PE, that boys don't have to wear a uniform and the girls do. And he said, well, we're going to change that. And just the process of how we changed that was so inspiring and so seminal for me as who I became, and realizing we can do things on our own. I think that's the most important thing we need to teach our sons and daughters or nieces or whoever we know growing up right now is giving them that sort of insight of how we can support each other. And we wrote a letter to the principal of the school, and it went to Title IX office in Berkeley. And of course, it's not allowed. You can't discriminate in a school environment, an educational environment, because of Title IX. And it changed. And it was such an important lesson for me. It really was a key moment. And I didn't understand that at the time, but it really helped me see that one person can make a change. It doesn't, a lot of times it takes a lot more people, but it's possible. And on the local level, you can actually create change.
As a feminist artist, during this fourth wave of feminism that has really exploded since the 2016 election, you seem like perfectly poised, to meet the moment, right? But can you tell us how your art evolved into feminism, or was it always there from when you were in art school?
It certainly was always in my mind, in my body. So I've been involved making, or at least thinking about feminist art for many, many, many years. My first sort of feminist piece about abortion rights was in 1990. So it's awful to think about that I'm still making this work. I would never have imagined that it would be still ongoing at this point. Feminist art, I did some definitely when I was in college. Interesting enough, some of the male teachers that I had, I was in some departments that were more sort of male-oriented, like glass blowing, and I was doing some feminist pieces, was definitely frowned upon in this very male environment. But I started doing wearable clothing, or art pieces that were wearable as clothing back then in college, and that's also when I started doing some feminist pieces. So it's always been in my mind, but college is when I first really started practicing more.
How do you hope your work can shape the landscape of feminism in America?
I hope it can inspire people. I think the most important thing for me is actually inspire people who don't necessarily agree with my views and opinions. That's really a key element. We all need to give each other hope and support each other, but the billboard campaign I did nationwide, mostly in states where abortion now, unfortunately, is illegal or heavily restricted, was aimed just at those women. And sending messages that were very easy to read, no back alley abortions, no Handmaid's Tale imagery. This was about abortion as healthcare. Issues that are very easy to take in and hopefully, give pause to women and men that drive by on the freeways or in their town to think about, well, what does that mean? Instead of thinking that it's about killing babies, it's about healthcare. So that's actually, I think, my most important audience in many ways. When I started this work, someone asked me a similar question, who's your intended audience? And at that point, it was young women, because that was before Trump was elected. And there were a lot of young women who were not connecting with feminism at that point. Pre-2016, we've forgotten about it, but that was really my intended audience. Now, luckily, that's changed at a big price, but it's at least improved.
I noticed also from your social media that you are hanging out with the cool kids of feminism, not only Hillary Clinton, but also Judy Chicago and Nadia from Pussy Riot. Can you tell us a bit about that?
Judy, sort of is the mother of all feminist art, so been really important to all of us, and really leading the way. And Nadia, of course, of Pussy Riot, is done also extremely important work. We did some work together in Miami last year, and I was really thrilled. ArtNet magazine did a story on us, and she framed it as 3 different generations, and I really, the author did, and I really liked how she took that approach and different ways that we do things and how we've inspired each other. So that, is pretty exciting to think about. And Nadia, we did a billboard project together, and we just sort of, she invited me to be in a billboard project, and I did the equal pay dollar bill, but billboard size, the pink dollar bill with the equal pay stamped on it, and it was in LA. And then we we really are like-minded, so we've become friends, collaborated on several things, and we'll do more work together. So that's exciting. She's so inspiring. It's a great friendship to have.
Will you tell us a little bit about what your creative process is like?
A lot of it's thinking about what's happening in the world, reading the newspaper or online, and talking with friends and colleagues. And my husband, he's a big part of my creative process too. We bounce ideas together. I really appreciate him as a collaborator, even though he doesn't want to be recognized that way, but I am going to call him out right now. Scott Moreland. He likes to keep in the background, but he's an important collaborator with ideas. And I really enjoy having that kind of partnership with my husband as well. My daughter, she's 14. We talk about ideas too, and it's really great hearing her perspective. She's obviously a feminist and has been involved in many marches at this point, and many of my actions. So, in fact, my husband and daughter are coming to DC for the event I'm doing, the march I'm doing there. A lot of my process too is coming into the studio and sitting with all the work that's here. I collect a lot of different things. So think about how do they go together, what works, you know. So it's, some of it is just spending time here and being stimulated by the objects and the pieces that I have around me that then build on new works.
Which show, event, or collection is the most meaningful to you?
I have to think about that, even
Pick
though
your favorite child.
Yeah, I like that. Pick your favorite child. Yeah, exactly.
On camera.
Yeah, on camera. That's exactly how they are, actually. They're like children, so that I love that you put it that way. Certain pieces. The purses have been really successful in the way that they're spreading the word of these ideas around, and that they have a life on their own. That's really important to me, that people can be activists, carry them around. But equally as much, I think, equally as important, sort of my most important works are really the public activations, the parades, the drawings in the sand. It's about doing things in spaces that are available to everyone. So that's what I really enjoy about the parades. I call them feminist art parades. And it really exposes everyone to the artwork. People wear costumes. They're very stimulating in the sense that there's kind of like spectacles, and people notice. And these are people that maybe don't go into museums or galleries. So in Miami, there's a whole other, body of people that live and work there. So maybe it's Lyft drivers and hotel workers and construction people, all the people that we pass by when we've done events down there. So it really includes everyone. And especially the events in Miami are very they're expensive. They definitely exclude a big, wide audience. I want everyone to experience the work. So that's what I think is so important about public art, and that's how I consider it public art, that it exposes a lot more people to these ideas and the artwork.
That's something I really found exciting about the women's marches, was like the creativity that came pouring out of people, and like how the signs were handmade, and the outfits, and and then how people on the sides of the parades responded once they saw, and sort of things were sinking in.
I have to add that speaking of the Women's March, the first time I did a parade in Miami, so that was the parade against patriarchy, I invited women that I didn't know. I just knew their artwork, and I did also get a few people hearing about the parade and contacted me, and one of them was Keesa Ocampo. She is the founder of the Pussy Hat and created the Pussy Hat movement, and she called me and said, can I participate?
Oh, wow.
And that started a friendship, and that was so exciting to engage with her. She now has collected 4 of my purses. She came with me to Sweden and do the parade there. She's been to 2 in New York and 1 in Miami. So it's these connections and friendships that have also grown that are really important to me.
I'm so glad you mentioned that, yes. The Pussy Hat movement, it was kind of, sometimes people loved it, and it was just something that you could do with your hands and then show up, and I just love the fact that there was this sea of hot pink at all these marches. It was a craft that was very intimate and small and personal, and then it had this massive impact. I mean, that's genius. I love that.
It is.
Can you tell me who are some of the other feminist artists or movers and shakers that you want people to know about?
There's a lot of them. And again, they're part of my group of, we call ourselves the Resistors, like really Sisters from 2016 through 2017 that have participated in various of the projects that I've done. Really, really dear and important to my heart to be intersectional. As a feminist, extremely important to me. So Wildcat Ebony Brown is also become a good friend, amazing artist. She's participated in a number of my parades and is coming to DC with me. She's based out of New York. So most of these people are based in different cities. Krista is in LA. What a lot of people don't know is she's an artist as well.
Okay.
In addition to the Pussy Hat, she's actually a writer and producer also of TV shows and movies. So she's really all round amazing woman. Whitney Bradshaw is an artist out of Chicago that I'm working with more and more. Tiffany Schlane, who's a filmmaker and also started the Webby Awards, is doing more artwork, and she's the one that's creating sort of the 4-day event in DC, and I'm part of it.
With the tree rings?
Yes.
Marking the feminist milestones?
Yes.
Okay.
So do you know Tiffany?
I've seen that show advertised, so I want to go see it.
We're all going to DC, and some of the people that are on the feminist tree ring will be there, that are still alive, will be present, and it's going to be a really exciting 4 days.
What is the legacy that you would like to leave with your art career?
I really hope that the artwork really has a lasting effect and that it can be looked at and really taught, can inspire, can really go down in history as a way of looking at the world through a feminist lens. And again, my daughter really continuing these ideas as I did with my father. That's really what I see as my legacy, is passing these ideas on to future generations.
What inspiring message can you give to aspiring artists who are trying to break through and find their voice?
Well, focus and passion, and not giving up. I mean, those are some really important elements. Having believe in yourself. That's not always easy as an artist. That's not always easy as a woman. So really staying true to your voice and really being persistent. I mean, these are all things that helped me quite a bit. I actually used to be an art career coach, so I've done this quite a bit, but really being persistent is really important. And art world is very hard, and there's ups and there's downs, and really sticking with it for the long game. If you stick with it for the long game, as challenging as that might be, you will go forward.
And do artists have to engage with the media and learn how to do that as a skill, or is it enough to just sort of make a piece and put it up in a gallery and go away?
Well, it is helpful. Most artists either don't feel comfortable or don't know how. There's great literature out about that, and some of it's just throwing yourself out there. So much of what I've done is just pulling up my boots and doing it. You know, whether it's installing a show, sweeping the floor, interacting with the media, it's just learning through practice. And that really makes a difference. And making that effort does create a difference. It is helpful. I have worked with the media quite a bit over the years, and that's just me reaching out and doing what maybe some PR people do, but the work can live in a vacuum if it doesn't get out. Even if you're showing in some galleries, it can still be like a tree falling in a forest that no one hears. It's about having a conversation. It's about getting out there. It's about engaging. And that takes time and skill and energy and effort. For example, the piece I did in IKEA was very much about having an engagement with a larger audience. It was responding to Black Friday. In 2009, and I made prints that I installed and did a shop drop where I left artwork in IKEA that people could actually buy. It was more exciting to me that, for example, the Oakland Tribune wrote a story about it, and then a larger audience learned about it, and then consequently, IKEA magazine, which is for all their employees, worldwide, they did an article about it. So it really kind of spread, actually, the idea on a scale I could never have done had I not contacted the media. So
that's an incredible story. You have to be creative, but also brave and speak out. So thank you so much, Michele Pred, conceptual artist, for joining the Seismic Sisters Show. I'm Kim Christensen. We'll catch you next time.
thank you so much.